Hi, I'm Samantha with Clawfoot Farm, and this morning I walked out into our garage where we keep our cold storage squash and pumpkins, butternut squash and acorn squash, and I noticed that our butternut squash are starting to get a little bit soft on the ends. Some of them were getting some mold on them. They're just not keeping very well any longer. So today we are going to take the butternut squash and the ones that are not moldy and then we're going to can them so that we can enjoy them for the rest of the year until we get our new harvest of our winter squash. So to prepare the squash, what I've done is I've taken our butternut squash, and the ones that had a little bit of a soft top, they were not moldy, but the tops were getting a little bit soft. Where you'll see that is right by the stems. They just will start to get soft because they're just starting to decay a little bit, and then if they get too soft, then they'll get moldy. But it's not moldy, it's just a little soft on there. So I've cut the tops off. You only want to can squash that is actually firm, it is ripe, and it is not moldy or turning rotten at all, because anything you don't want to eat, you're not going to want to can because you're going to eat it later. So this squash is perfect. So I've cut the soft top off of it, and I've also used a vegetable peeler, and I've just peeled off all of the skin on there. Then I slice it in half, and at the bulb end of the big fat bulb end of the squash is where all the seeds hide, and you just take a spoon and scoop out the seed. What you're just going to do is slice it and cut it into about 1-inch cubes. And here we have some that are already prepared. 1-inch cubes of squash, and then you're ready to put it in a pot to blanch them, basically blanch them and get them all warm before we're going to can them. So I'm going to just cut up this last little bit of squash, and then we'll move over to the stove. So we've got all of our stuff ready to go. So let me show you the next step here. So we have water in the canner, and the water is heating. It's on low right now, just to keep it warm, just to speed up the process a little bit to get it going. We have some water in a pot to ladle into the jars around the squash, and a ladle to scoop it. We have our jars. So the jars are clean. I ran them through the dishwasher, so they're warm and they're clean. With pressure canning, you don't have to have them sterile, but it's nice if they're clean and warm. We have our funnels. Our lids are ready. My jars right now, I have a mix of wide mouth and regular mouth jars, so I have a mix of wide mouth and regular mouth lids. And then rings, wide mouth and regular mouth rings, and extra jars. We also have our jar lifter. So this is really helpful. Once the jars are full, you lift them and put them right into the canner. So now the squash have been boiling for 2 minutes. I'm going to remove the lid. And you just want them blanched so that they're warm. And it's heavy, but not cooked really soft, because you don't want them to mush. And I'm going to just take the squash with my slotted spoon and put them right into the jars. You also can drain this if you'd like, so that you don't get the cooking water into your jars. But I'm just using a slotted spoon because really it's heavy. It's really heavy, to take this all the way over to the sink and drain a big thing of hot water. So I'm just going to move fast so that the squash doesn't cook too much in this water, and we're just going to fill these up. So that's easy. You can also add some salt to the jars if you'd like. For pint jars, you would add a half teaspoon. For quart jars, you would do a whole teaspoon of salt. Today we're not doing salt. Usually what we use the squash for is for soups and chilies and stews. So we already use it in things that we're going to add our own salt to. So there's no reason for us to add salt to it. You're going to fill your jars up and leave a 1-inch headspace. Oh, that's a little bit more than 1-inch headspace. So 1-inch headspace, just to give you a really quick tip here, is the bottom ring of your jars. That gives you a 1-inch headspace to the top of the jar. So ladle the water right into the jar. You still want it to be you still want it to be a full inch of headspace there. A little bit more than that. Okay. Then you're going to take your clean cloth. You're going to go right around the rim of your jar to make sure there is nothing stuck, no food or water on the jar. You're going to take your lid. And these are the newer ball lids, so you don't need to put them in water first and warm up the seal. So you're going to put the lid right on there. You're going to take the ring and add the ring and screw it down finger tight. And then this goes right into the canner, and then we're going to can them. So I'm going to keep on filling these jars up, and I'll come back and show you how we put them in the canner. Now we have our jars all filled, the lid's on, the ring's on, and they're all in the canner. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we have 16 pint jars filled and in here. With a Presto canner, you can stack your pint jars as long as you have a rack or a divider in between your stacks. You cannot stack the jars on top of each other, so that gives us more efficient use of the canner. And so we have 16 jars in here. We're going to put the lid on, and the lid has a little V or a little mark here that says open and close. We're going to match the V's up, this one to the one that's on the handle, and pull the handles together to lock it. And then I'm going to turn my heat on my stove up to high and wait for this to warm up and start to vent. Okay, so now it's been 10 minutes. Oh, I'm going to turn this off. There we go. Now you can hear a little better. So now it's been 10 minutes and that this has vented, and we have a little tab that is up. I'm now going to use my weight and put the weight on, just like that. That is going to cause the pressure inside to build up. We're going to watch the dial, and when it reaches 10 pounds of pressure, we're going to turn our heat down from high. It's on high now. We're going to turn the heat down. On my stove, it means turning it all the way down to low, but turn it down to where you're going to keep that pressure at 10 pounds of pressure for 55 minutes. Alrighty, well, this has been canning at 10 pounds of pressure for 55 minutes. When that time was up, we turned the heat off and let it cool down. We left everything as it is, and it cooled down for about 30 minutes. Now we're going to take the weight off of it, And there, when I take the weight off, there is no pressure or steam coming out from the inside, and that is a good sign. If you take your weight off and you still have a little hissing or whooshing happening right there, you're going to want to leave it again for another 10 to 15 minutes and let it slowly depressurize. You don't want to open this up and have the pressure drop really quickly. It can explode and crack your jars that are inside. Since there's no pressure coming out of here, we're going to just slide this open. And I'm going to use my pot holders because it's still really hot. Carefully open this up and set the lid aside. Lots of steam on that. All right, there you go. And now we can remove our jars from the canner. They are, again, really, really hot. Use a jar lifter. They are still boiling. I don't know if you can see that, but they are still boiling inside. And so I'm going to just lift them out of the canner, and I'm going to place them on a towel. I'm putting them on the middle part of my stove. I try not to carry it too far. I just don't want to drop hot jars on my floor. But you do want to put it on a towel. Probably a wood cutting board would work too, just to absorb some of that heat and give it a little bit of insulation in between. But that is it. So I hope you enjoyed our little video on how we can our winter squash, and hopefully this helps you and inspires you to can up some squash and have some yummy squash throughout the season.